Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Happier Hour. Today we have with us Urvashi Vora. She is a counselor and remedial educator having more than 15 years of experience in the field of education with international schools as well as child guidance clinics. She has solved many case studies by remediating children with difficulties in reading, writing, spellings, maths, psychology related speech difficulties, and many more. She is the owner of Unique Perception Center at Chembur, which is a counseling, remedial, and skill development clinic where parents and children come at one place to bridge gaps in academic, psychological, or behavioral issues. She believes in Act 2 inclusion and therefore inspire teachers to use universal design learning in classrooms. Today we are going to discuss about child's development milestones and remedial education, and we have with us Urvashi Vora. Welcome to the show, Urvashi.
Hi, thank you so much.
Yeah. So Urvashi, एक चीज़ तो ना मतलब एटलीस्ट मुझे समझनी है कि when we talk about children अभी इतने सारे हैं, मतलब we have child psychiatrist, we have child psychologist, we have remedial educator, we have occupational therapist, then we have speech delay experts. सब में difference क्या है?
It's a very important question that you have asked because most of the parents or people get confused with all these terminologies and whom to approach for what is very important. So when we talk about a psychiatrist is a person who would do all the kind of medication and everything that they would do. A psychologist is a person who would without any medication but do all the therapies for the child. A counselor is a person who actually takes counseling, whether it's a behavioral issue, social issue, all these counseling does take place. And when you talk about speech therapist is going to be something, if there's a physiological problem related to speech, then a speech therapist is required. OT therapist is a person who deals with gross and fine motor skills. So mostly like a daily living skills what we are actually doing, and if there's difficulty in them, then a OT therapist is required.
Okay.
And here most importantly when we talk about a remedial educator is a person who actually deals with academic difficulty of the child.
Okay.
These academic difficulty are related to developing skills for the children and then leading to these academic, solving of these academic problems of the child. Here I would like to add one more person, which is a clinical psychologist. A clinical psychologist or a clinical counselor would actually do all the testings and they would gather all the reports for the child. So these are the different therapists that we have.
Interesting. And I mean, in remedial education, so is it more related to IQ of the children or it's more about the resistance of learning?
Basically, there is difficulty in learning and difficulty in academics. Then the remedial educator comes into place over there, and the remedial educator bridges the gap that the child is having. The actual age and the skill development age is when there's a difference in that, the remedial educator bridges the gap between them.
Okay. And very interesting, you mentioned about when there's a difference between actual age and the skill age. So, I mean, what are the different stages that are there and what is a typical expectation with regards to skill? I mean, at this age, at least itna skill develop hona chahiye academically.
So basically we have 5 domains that are there. Gross motor skills, which is called as limbs and everything, development of the limbs. Fine motor skills is hand motor coordination that we have, finger muscle development. Then we talk about cognitive skills. Cognitive skills deals with IQ related, logical thinking, analytical thinking, knowledge base, that is cognitive skills. Then we have social emotional skills, that is how socially the child is able to acquaint to the environment around the child. And then we have behavioral skills, what kind of behaviors the child is doing. So these are the basic domains in which the developmental milestones would take place.
And typically, I mean, if I say that the kid is 0 to 1 and 1 to 5, then 5 to 10. So what are the typical milestones that you see a kid needs to have?
Yeah, so there are basically, we have a lot of research on this. We have lot of matter even on Google, and if you search, these are called as developmental milestones. Now, developmental milestones have a lot of detail, but just to give a little briefing on it, like for example, if the child is of infancy 0 to 1 years of age, then physical development takes place, like grasping. There are reflexes which are there, like blinking of an eye or pushing the leg. All these small babies would do all these things. Sitting up, neck balance, all these infancy 0 to 1 years of age. It's a physical development usually takes place at that time. Then we have probably toddlers where 1 to 3 years of age, like a preschool age, which we talk about, preschools when they start going through. So that is the age which comes in, where they'll be learning all the things, like this is a table, this is a book, this is a vase, this is a cup. So they'll be learning one word which is there. So language development really takes place, cognitive development takes place, where they try to grasp and learn. So there's a lot of stimulation which is given to child at that age. Then we are talking about, typically junior or senior KG from 3 to 5 years of age, where they are just started a school which is there. So they are learning a lot of language which is there. So where they are learning 2-letter words, 3-letter words, fine motor skill comes into place, where there's a lot of writing which is there. So all these pre-writing skills come in, then writing also comes in. So all these development is important at that age. Then we talk about school, which is from 1st grade to a 5th grade probably. Then a lot of cognitive development. Teachers become like God for them. Whatever teacher speaks, that is like the last sentence for children. And even peers come into play at that time. So friendship, all this is important. Social development comes into place. Even they try to understand and learn what is socially appropriate behaviors also at that age. Then we talk about from 5th grade to about 10th or something. So we would talk about all these adolescent age. So socio-emotional development. So here the personality of the child is developing according to the experiences what they have got throughout their childhood to the middle age. The experiences, according to that the personality develops, like a family personality, or we talk about topics related to friends, topics related to domains related to probably education, what is their own scenario. They want to take decisions also at that age. And in adolescent they want to do what they like doing, so they want to become independent during adolescent age. So there are different ages. Of course, there are a lot of details with it, and a specialist would be able to recognize these details and everything. So, but yes, we do have this material even online.
So as a parent, how would I know whether my kid, they are meeting the, all these development milestones or they're not?
So as a parent, basic अंडरस्टैंडिंग, एक सिंपल सी बात हमको इतना ही समझना है कि इफ़ योर चाइल्ड इज़ नॉट एबल टू डू अ पर्टिकुलर सर्टन थिंग्स, वेदर इट इज़ academics, whether it's social, whether it is fine motor skills, according to what the other peers are able to do in that classroom, then definitely the parent must consult a specialist. First, if you don't know anything, you can go to a doctor where your child was born. So a pediatric comes into play. Then pediatric will definitely refer to a correct specialist which is there. So accordingly you can go. Or a remedial educator can also help you with this. A counselor can help you with this, where a proper specialist need to be, they will be guiding it, and then accordingly you can take ahead from there.
Interesting. And in terms of, when we talk about remedial education, so typically at what age does it start?
Remedial education, there is no age as such to start, but the minute to try to recognize and understand that the child is not going according to the developmental milestone, or there is some kind of a delay in academics, especially in academics, then the remedial educator play starts. So at usually where what happens is that when the child goes to a play school which is at 1.5 and 2 years of age, that's where the parents start recognizing if there is any issue. Before that they still feel child बच्चा छोटा है, हो जाएगा, कर लेगा, सीख लेगा, all these things are there, so हम सिखा लेंगे उसको, जैसे बड़ा होगा वो समझ जाएगा, that is how it takes place. So teachers actually pinpoint at those things, this is not happening. That's where the light starts for the parents, that okay, now we need to start off, we need to consult somebody. But still there's a lot of refraining at about consulting a specialist at 1.5 and 2 years of age of the child.
And usually, I mean, how do parents come to you? Is it like they come by themselves, or it's typically schools who refer that probably your child needs some extra attention and you need to go to a coach, therapist, a counselor? So how does it happen?
Most of the time, in most of the scenarios, schools do refer, or teachers do guide कि you need to go to a therapist, or you need to go to a remedial educator for some extra consultancy or extra help. Or a school counselor would first counsel the parents, and then there would be a reference which would be given outside the school scenario. But yes, parents who are well read, who are understanding the importance of a specialist, do consult a remedial educator or a counselor as they are required. Because nowadays parents are going for Garbha Sanskar programs and everything, so there's a lot of awareness which is being spreading across that when and where we need to consult. And through Garbha Sanskar they get a lot of results, understanding that these all methodologies of a specialist, a person who is actually giving you all these guidelines, does help in the grooming of the child.
So can you explain more about that in terms of Garbha Sanskar, and उसमें क्या कराते हैं, and how does it help later on?
Yeah. So basically Garbha Sanskar is on trimesters, the first, second and third trimester of the pregnancy period, and where the child is in the mother's womb, but there is some kind of an education which is being given to parents as to the growth of the child which is taking place in the womb. And according to the growth of the child, there are stimulations which is being done as an activity which is being given to the parents. So parents are supposed to do that activity, like for example, when there is a cognitive development or a brain development taking place, especially in the third trimester, the parents are reading story books and all of that. They are reading spiritual books also. So it's basically educating the child within the womb. That's called as Garbha Sanskar.
And how does it, help later on?
It helps later on in the grooming of the child. When the child is born, the child is reciprocating to all the flashcards or the stories that you have already read to the child. So there we understand that even in the womb, the education can be given to the child. So these are the things. Plus, if the child is, timetabled, sometimes when we talk about, sleep hours and, eating hours and all of that, even these are being done during the womb itself.
Oh, nice. And is it like remedial educators are involved during Garbha Sanskar, in the Garbha Sanskar training, or, whatever little activities that the parents are doing?
Yes, a remedial educator will be taking the education part of it, the education stimulation part of it. A remedial educator can take it. But not only remedial education, but you need to be trained in Garbha Sanskar also. So you need to understand the developmental milestones of the child which is happening in the womb. So like I have been qualified as a counselor and a remedial educator. So then that is a combination which is actually required for training for the parents for Garbha Sanskar.
And you know, when we discussed about developmental delays in, you know, infants, toddlers, how much of delay is considered as normal?
See, first, as I said, if your child is not performing according to how other children are performing, Indian mentality of parents is that we will try something for the child. So they try to, do some kind of home remedies which is there, like teaching the child in a different manner, different pattern. Plus, right now we see a lot of reels and everything. So according to from that they try to do. Ideally, if you think after 6 months of trying out everything, yet if there is no result, then definitely you need to consult a specialist. And academic difficulty, then a remedial educator you need to consult. I would say that a delay of about 1 year का जब डिले आता है तब उन्हें थोड़ा रियलाइज होने लगता है एज पेरेंट्स. इवन टीचर्स ऑल्सो रियलाइज इट दैट वे, बट एज अर्ली एज पॉसिबल इफ यू कैन रियलाइज दिस डिले इट इज़ मच बेटर.
And you know, in terms of when the teachers send kids to you or when the parents come to you, typically what are the issues that you have seen? Probably, you know, top 5 issues that you've seen with the kids.
So basically, I have seen issues with writing. So when junior KG starts off, there is writing issues that actually come up where there is no grasp, proper grasp is not there, lines are not straight. After doing a lot of dotted, patterns and everything, yet the child is not able to write well. So these are the writing issues are there. There are spelling issues also which are coming up in senior KG, where the child is not able to, especially when magical words come in, the child is not able to, really spell out well, or when the child is reading, the child is not able to understand. Reading is proper, but understanding is not there. So these are typical issues which you find at the lower age, which is there. And then later on, then academic issues totally come in with subjects like math or science or geography or history. So such kind of academic issues whereby one subject is little weak and the child can't understand the subject. So all these conceptualizing difficulties are there which are coming in. Then we even have attention problem or concentration problem or behavioral issues, like a lot of activity level is there of the child within the classroom, can't sit at one place, fidgeting, everything dropping down. So all these things kind of these activities come in. So all these issues or the complaints come from teachers to parents, and then parents look out for a specialist. So that's how we have these issues.
And specifically on the academic part of it, so जैसे you mentioned about writing में issue है या फिर spellings में issue है, first instinct even me as a parent would be tuition लगाते हैं. Right? So how is it different compared to when the kid is sent to a remedial educator?
True. This is one of the myth also that parents think a remedial educator is a tuition teacher. तो उनको क्या बोलते हैं, ये सब्जेक्ट वीक है मेरे बच्चे का. तो लेकिन ये चीज़ नहीं होता है. रेमिडियल एजुकेटर डज नॉट टेक सब्जेक्ट वाइज, बट अ रेमिडियल एजुकेटर डेवलप्स स्किल्स दैट विल हेल्प द चाइल्ड टू लर्न द सब्जेक्ट. So that's how the thing is there. So to burst the myth, this is how it is. Skill development होता है तब जाके the subject is learn होता है. तो जैसे for example, if I would say if a child is weak in math, okay, so cannot understand numbers. Some children can't understand. For them, numbers are jargons. They can't understand at lower age. So we need to understand, make them understand by concrete objects. We need to make them understand by doing things. We need to make them understand by kinesthetic way of doing it, which is like usually हम लोग value counting करते हैं, हमको number समझ में आता है. That's how the school pattern goes. But यहाँ पे इनको kinesthetic physically activity करा के numbers कराना पड़ता है. Sometimes that way. Sometimes clay से सब लिखा के numbers हमको बना के numbers इनको सिखाना पड़ता है. So there are a lot of activities in which we need to do. We need to understand the learning style of the child and then cater to these skills. So that kind of a sync is where the specialist is specialized in understanding the learning styles, recognizing what the learning styles are, and accordingly developing skills.
So I mean, you mentioned about understanding the child's learning style. So exactly आप क्या करते हैं उसमें? Do you have like typical ways and methods of doing that?
Yes. So basically, we through observation or through our TMTs, which is called as teacher-made test, which we understand there are 8 types of learning, 8 to 9 types of learning styles, which are there. But major learning styles, if you try to see, it's more of visual, auditory, kinesthetic. These are 3 major learning styles. Then there are many. But these 3 learning styles, we need to understand which is the most powerful for the child. And then accordingly, we need to design our activities. Recognizing those learning styles. So through observation, most of us, we as specialists, because we are now dealing with so many children, so through observation we understand, but there is a checklist also which we make and then accordingly understand the learning style of the child.
So typically, is it like the child will come to you, your center, and then you'll give them some activities, you'll observe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is the same manner. We'll observe accordingly, and if it's a school scenario, like if I'm associated with a school, then within the classroom I'll be observing the child and accordingly understanding the child's learning patterns.
And the 3 learning patterns that you mentioned about, so exactly क्या होता है उन तीनों में?
Basically, some people are visual learners. If I show you something, you will be able to learn better. Some people who are linguistic learners or auditory learners. So if you hear something, you will be able to learn better.
Okay.
Yeah, some people, if you activity कराएंगे, especially children who are whose activity level is very high, so those उनको activity कराएंगे तो वो समझ में उनको आएगा. So somebody who is, we know that in future that child would be street smart because what the child wants to do the activity and understand. So that kind of a thing. तो activity करा के हमको कराना पड़ता है. If we make an active child sit down at one place and listen to something, they will never learn anything. एक simple कॉमन सेंस हम भी बात करते हैं कि अगर मैं एक जगह पे बैठ नहीं सकती तो आप मुझे बैठ के पढ़ा नहीं सकते हो. तो हमको क्या लगता है बच्चा पढ़ नहीं रहा है.
करेक्ट.
तो बच्चा पढ़ नहीं रहा है ऐसा नहीं है, बच्चे को आप जैसे पढ़ा रहे हो वो उसका लर्निंग स्टाइल है ही नहीं. So that is what you need to recognize and accordingly have our teachings or the lessons designed in this manner.
But how long does this process take? So I mean, you recognize or you evaluate कि क्या learning style है, and then you do activities with the kid. So typically, how long does this process take before the correction starts happening?
So basically, learning style recognition does not take much time, maybe 1 or 2 sessions maximum, which is there. And जो correction होता है that depends on case to case. But I would talk about if a smallest error also which is there, or 1 or 2 things that you need to rectify or develop skills for, especially for children, younger children, minimum 6 months. I would say. So till the time the child's the recognition takes place, the child starts adapting to new methodology, and that methodology is set in a regular routine, which is a classroom scenario. So it does take 6 months minimum for that. So I would request all the parents to at least complete whatever you have started off with, because if you do halfway, it is not going to go anywhere.
And typically ये कितने sessions होते हैं? मतलब you said they should at least do the entire 6-month thing wherein they can actually see difference in the child. They can see now they're coping up with the academics better.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of sessions and everything, how long does it take? How many sessions are there?
These are all things which is dependent on what exactly we need to cater to and which skill we need to develop. So I would say even if like a 6 months time, but once a week or twice a week depends on the intensity of the kind of skills that you need to develop. So a session usually comprises of about 30 to 40 minutes, which is there. and once a week or twice a week, depends on case to case how it is.
And typically कैसा रहता है? So is it like you do certain activities with the kid and then they go back to their normal world and they are doing whatever they want to do and then again come back to you,
Yeah.
do activities, or there's some homework also given to the kids?
I, as a remedial educator, believe in this manner that if the child is in school, like about 3rd, 4th grade, 5th grade, understands what difficulty they are having, then we need to educate the child. We need to even educate parents.
Okay.
Parents at all ages, I would say. Educating parents is important. And it's not only developing that skill, if that skill develop किया वो continue होना चाहिए even if the remedial educator is not there in the scene. So educating parents is utmost important. So I don't only take sessions for the child, but I even educate parents also. So I do take their counseling at start to, first they need to accept where their child is. Acceptance is important. If you don't accept, आप अपनी गलती या आपकी कोई भी चीज़ सिनेरियो आप एक्सेप्ट नहीं करते हो, आप नहीं सुधरोगे, आप वहाँ से वो पैराडाइम से आप हटोगे ही नहीं. That's how it is. So we need to accept where our child is. If it is a little thing, then okay, it can be rectified. But if it's a severe, then you need to accept, and the parent also need to understand what is to be expected out of these sessions. Meaning एक अनरियलिस्टिक एक्सपेक्टेशन रख दिया कि अगर चलो स्पेशलिस्ट को बच्चा भेज दिया तो अभी हो जाएगा हमारा सॉल्व. तो ऐसा नहीं होता है. सिवियर केसेस में द पेरेंट्स हैव टू डील विद द लिमिटेशंस आल्सो. सो हियर काउंसलिंग पेरेंट्स इज इम्पॉर्टेंट. And as a remedial educator, I sometimes teach the skill to parents also, because ultimately parents are the people who are going to stay with their child and who are going to do the entire process. Whenever the child is going to feel difficult, they should know the methodology through which they are able to cater to that child also. So that's how I do. So that's a holistic kind of a thing. It's not like just taking session and काम हो गया.
And of course school becomes a very important part, and school में तो इतने सारे students हैं, so there's a particular way in which education will be imparted. So but every kid is different, right? Their learning methods are different. So how does remedial education integrates with school? So if a kid is coming for remedial education and they go back to the school, how does this integration happens?
Yeah. Now most of the international schools who are having their own counseling set up within the school, okay, they identify and recognize students. They do take up little remediation within the school itself, and if extra is required, then an outside remedial educator has been referred, or a counselor has been referred, or an OT therapist has been referred. All these things reference do take place. Now this is a tripod system, okay, which I would say a parent, school, that is the counselors, remedial educators, whoever is there, teachers, principals, head teachers, all these in the school, and the specialist. They come on one table, they try to discuss the case of the child. Each one has their own role to play with the child, and then accordingly, quarterly or something, these meetings do take place. But this applicable, it is rarely happening. Currently what is happening is that the reference is being given, the parent and the specialist is actually trying to solve the case, and then again the reports are being sent to school कि इतना solve किया है, इतना नहीं हुआ है, इतना हो रहा है, इतना नहीं हो रहा है. This is how it is happening right now. So but yes, this is the ideal way of dealing with a case. So we are still coming up to that kind of a scenario where everybody sits on one table, discuss the case, and everybody is on one page to have particular goals which are going on. So when there are cases are severe, like a child is identified with learning disability or the child is identified with autism, then this is the kind of pattern which is going on currently. But if it's a little not too severe problem, then this is how it goes, where parent and the specialist deal with it, and then the reports are sent to the school.
Interesting. And in terms of once a child has done the remedial education, they have gone through the 6 months of intensive training, you can say. Is it like now they can the way things are taught in the school, they are able to cope up with that?
Yes, they are able to cope up with that, but at the same time, if there is any kind of change in the methodology, which is like teaching methodology in school, which is required, then definitely the teacher has been informed by the parent, or there's a report by a remedial educator जो टीचर के पास जाता है, एंड फिर टीचर को भी समझ में आता है कि वो कैसे लेसन को ट्वीक करना है थोड़ा बहुत वो चाइल्ड के हिसाब से. So there are inclusive schools who have this entire policy of accepting children having some kind of academic difficulty. There the teachers have been asked to make lesson plans according to learning styles. So where the lesson plans are made according to learning styles, then this report remedial educator को देने की ज़रूरत नहीं होती है, because everything is been taken care in school itself. So remedial educator will develop skills and send the report accordingly to the school.
And is it like, a child, they have, like you mentioned about 3 different learning styles. So is it like the child will have only one particular kind of learning style, and in all the subjects or all the aspects of life you see only that learning style, or it's like, it can change that in a particular subject you see they're more visual, the other one you see they're more kinesthetic? How exactly is it?
So basically it is like a particular methodology is little better than the other methods. That's how it is. So we have these graphs and we have these entire test also which is being done to understand the learning style of the child. And if a child is a auditory learner, then auditory methods are going to be much better for the child than the other learning, whether it's across all subjects or across all skills in life.
And these 3 different, again, the learning styles as you call it, इसमें exactly क्या क्या करते हैं? जैसे auditory, so what are the typical kind of task or play that you give to the child?
अगर auditory learning style है तो everything that you hear is going to be an activity based. So even if you hear a lesson or you hear anything, you hear teacher speaking, you will be able to learn. So I have recognized this in even play school also. 1.5-year-old child sitting, facing the back to the teacher. But when teacher would ask the question, he would answer from the back. So वो ऑडिटरी हो गया, देखे बिना मुझे पता है टीचर ने क्वेश्चन पूछा, मुझे आंसर पता है, मैं वहाँ से बोलूँगा. So that's how it happens. So that's an auditory learning style.
And typically मतलब क्या activities होती हैं आपकी if you recognize that a kid has auditory learning style and they are facing issues? So what are the kind of activities that you do?
So basically you're going to explain everything. You're going to record, and the child would be hearing the lesson instead of reading the lesson.
Okay.
So visual learner would like to read, would like to see pictures, would like to have something like a video or something like that. They will learn from those. When you talk about kinesthetic learner, they would do that activity, or they would do role playing would be an important role in kinesthetic. If I want to teach them addition, I would do hop skip jump for them, and teach them like, okay, 3, if they have put the dice on 3, they would and then they have put on 5, so 3 plus 5, then accordingly they will be going. So these kind of activities are there for each learning style.
Interesting. And I mean, so school mein, like again going back to schools, because they have different kind of children, so are they making their curriculum or way of teaching in such a way that all three kind of learning patterns come into it, and all kind of students, they are able to understand?
Yes. So basically international schools have designed their entire curriculum and their lesson plans according to the learning style of the child, which is called as Universal Design of Learning, which is UDL. So now UDL is something where you cater to all the children, the spectrum of children who are there, and you try to design a lesson plan in which you can accommodate all of them. So that's how the lessons have been done in school.
Interesting. And going back to therapy that you mentioned about parents, that somewhere it's not only about the child, it's also about educating the parent. So I mean, how does it typically happen, and what's the kind of resistance or acceptance that you've seen from parents?
So basically I have seen that counseling plays an important role over here, and the parents need to understand what is strengths and weaknesses of their child. Once they understand the strengths and weaknesses, we actually try to ask them how to go through developing their skills. So we involve them in the process of the development. That's how I believe. Once you involve the parent in the process of the development, the parent also knows what is the result the child is getting, how this entire activity is beneficial for the child, what is the progress that the child is having. If you just send your child to a remedial educator and the remedial educator is doing their work, they will never understand what the progress is, unless until it's a vast progress which has happened, and nothing happens in one fine day, it's a process completely. So if you involve the parents within that process, it helps them to understand and observe their child in a much better fashion. So first is acceptance. Second one is to understand what is the strengths and weaknesses. So the parents go through that entire process of listing down the strengths and weakness of the child. So the observation increases along the way. And once your observation increases and you go through that entire process, the parent also understand that this is the progress of my child. My child could not do this earlier and now they can do this. So that's the progress that is there. So once they see the progress, now anyone as humans, when we know this method is working or this is the progress that we are getting, we'll definitely do that in a recurring time.
And I mean, so basically you're saying parents' involvement in the entire process is extremely important.
Yes. So those parents who do not accept or do not get involved, or due to time constraint or any other constraints which are there, it's difficult to deal with the child then. Yes, you can deal, there is a progress which is happening, but that progress is so temporary because that same progress is not getting, the methodology is not getting carried forwarded at home. That's the thing.
Yeah, because I mean, you correctly said, these days, parents are quite busy. In some of the cases, both the parents, they are working, they really do not have time to, be involved in this entire process this much. So I mean, for those parents, what would be your suggestion?
You are a parent, so definitely you need to dedicate little bit of time for your child, whether it's over a weekend or it is going to be after work, or any one of the parent need to take a role to step up to understand and to do all the little things that they require to do at home, so that methodology is continued even after the session at home also. Then only generalization would take place. Otherwise, that method is going to be stuck to that particular remedial class itself. If it needs to be generalized, it's from remedial class to a home, then to a school, and then everywhere. That's how it goes.
Interesting. And in terms of, different forms of learning disabilities, so what are the major form of learning disabilities that you see?
So basically, there is dyslexia, meaning having spelling issues, Then there's dysgraphia, dyscalculia. Dysgraphia is all the writing issues that the child is having. Dyscalculia is math issues that the child is having. So these are certain issues related to learning disability. Learning disability can be genetic and I would say environmental also, but then mostly yes, we can rectify if early intervention is taking place. We can resolve it or through different methods or using methods which are suitable for the child. So we can do that, and nowadays we have even textbooks which are coming up where there is a barcode which has been given, and if you scan the barcode you have the same video of the same lesson also which is there. So all these textbooks are also coming up. In fact there's a lot of improvisation in education system also. So there is a lot of accommodation and inclusion which has been done for these children.
Interesting. And I mean, you touched upon the reasons why children can have this. One, you mentioned it can be genetic, it can be environment. So typically, I mean, are there other reasons as well that you've seen? And also, is it like, over a period of time we have seen an increase or decline in learning disability?
Basically there could be stimulation issues also. Environmental, if we actually try to say, it's more of lack of stimulation given to the child. Like for example, a student who has the mother tongue is Gujarati or any other language also, and you're going to an English medium school and you're not talking that language, then definitely there'll be a lot of learning issues which are happening. So they're not typically learning disability which is there, they are at risk to learning disability because of the issue. So what we try to do is that before even children are really having those issues, severe issues, we try to resolve it at an early stage itself.
And you're saying earlier someone gets to know, it's better that
Yes.
it gets resolved.
Yes.
And remedial education in India versus abroad. So do you see a lot of differences in the way we do it in India versus the facilities and the treatments, methods that are there in West?
Yes, there's a vast difference, I would say that way. If you would talk about any school in abroad, they have proper counseling centers, they have a streamlined methodology or the process through which the parents have to go. Here the parents are still fumbling between which therapist to go, where to go, what's happening, all that, and through experience they understand, okay, now where to go, now what to do. So the guidelines which has been given over there, it has been really documented well, and accordingly the parents are being guided also. And plus every school is having proper counseling unit, the remedial educators which are there, they also follow a particular methodology and have the documents in place. So all these things is more systematic and organized. Though in India we are coming up with, now there are a lot of child guidance clinic centers and everything, they are coming up with proper documentation, proper methodologies and everything, where you get all the specialists under one roof, which is called as a CGC center, that's Child Guidance Center. So they are all coming in one roof, but yet it is less compared to the students and the problems that we are facing. Compared to that, the ratio is less.
And do you see parents, schools, teacher getting more empathetic towards learning delays and remedial education overall?
So I would say empathy is related to individuality, whether you're a professional or a teacher. But if you have the knowledge of what the child is going through or what the child is having difficulty in, then that empathy is always there. So it's like how passionate you are towards your profession. I would not take as empathy along with the position that you are there in. So I have found that there are really good teachers who go extra mile to teach the child and take extra effort to understand the child and tweak their methodologies also. But I have seen some teachers who just do for the sake of doing it like a job. So, if they have been asked to make a report of the child, they would be writing this is my observation, this is a report which is being done. Now, from there, if the report has gone to a counselor, school counselor, something, the school counselor also here would play an important role in which they would not only with the record which is there would call the parent, they themselves would go in the classroom and observe whether this report is really validated or not, or there are other aspects that needs to be considered. All these things needs to be done by the counselor. Now there are pros and cons. Some counselors do it, some counselors do not do it. Some counselors feel कि टीचर से रिपोर्ट आया वो मुझे पेरेंट को देना है and रेफर करना है, that is my job. So somebody who takes it like a job at the purview, they would do it in this manner. But somebody who would go an extra mile to understand that entire thing, what are the causes behind this entire result which is coming in as a report. So then there would be different aspects also coming into consideration. The environment and the school and everything. Similarly, I would take it like even for a psychiatrist who is actually trying to or a clinical counselor who is trying to do some kind of psychological testing when they have been referred, the child is referred over there. Now the psychological testings are standardized tests. They are activities on which the entire report is based. The child's IQ report is based, interest inventory is based, all these based on the kind of activity the child has done at that particular hour and in that pressure, whether you're nervous, whether you're not understanding and कितनी बार आप समझाओगे वो child को. Sometimes it happens in this man. So environment does play at that moment a role. It's like a given an exam.
Correct.
कि आपको आता है concept but nervous हो गए तो नहीं लिखोगे कुछ भी. तो उसके ऊपर report होता है पूरा. So there are a lot of things and then due to that report when the counseling is done to parents, the parents get really scared. I recently came across a case where I actually saw the entire report and it was given that the child's cognitive function is really low and when I asked the child, आपको समझा activity आपने क्या किया वहाँ पे? मेरे को कुछ भी नहीं समझ में आया. So this is what the answer of the child was. So definitely अगर activity नहीं समझ में आया तो result बुरा ही आएगा ना. So everything weighs on the performance should be equivalent to the environment that has been created and you need to understand the child as a whole. So it takes an effort which is beyond your job profile.
Correct. And can parents do something in such a case wherein, say for example, the teachers or the psychologists in the school, they're actually doing the job as the job and not taking that extra effort. So can parents do anything in such a case?
Parents are little tied up with this, I would say that way. Whatever the school says, since a child is in that school, parents do need to follow. Most of the time I have seen that if it is recommended for the child to go for an OT therapist, the parents have to send and they have to send the reports back from an OT therapist also. Otherwise, they would be calling the parents again and again and that will create anxiety in parents. So that's what I've seen. But if you are giving right reasoning or you're trying to discuss, if the counselor is also little open to discuss all these things and they're sensitive towards child, then yes, definitely parents get a lot of leverage in understanding exactly who are the right people whom they need to go to, and that anxiety will not be created.
That's fair enough. And in terms of when you are doing remedial education for a child, does their behavior, their temperament, uh, it plays a role in how effective the progress would be?
Yes. Initially, if the child is inhibited to come for the session, uh, they need to be positive about it. Like the children who understand that, I'm going to a counselor or I'm going to a psychologist or a therapist or something, first thing that comes to mind, is there something wrong with me? Why am I sent to somebody, or why am I picked up from the class and gone to a special room over there? This is how the thing comes up. So we need to really desensitize all these part and of it, and then start our therapies. So we usually, if children don't understand, we meet them as friends only, or as some teachers we are meeting, we are going for some class or something like that. We play a lot of games and activities with them so that we build rapport with them. So rapport building is done everywhere, whether it is a counselor, whether it is a psychologist, a pediatric, or a remedial educator. Everybody starts with those rapport building. So once that rapport is built up, then the child becomes friendly and does not feel these are something which is happening to me, why it is being done to me. Because if you look at their eyes, you understand, like it's like as if some punishment has been given to them and they are going in a particular room. So that should be not the case. So we start with such kind of icebreaker activities, and then later on we start with our own therapies. So we make them understand what they're happening, and we are here to support and help them. That is the main clue that you need to impart, whether it's to parent or the child. When they feel that this person is not testing us but is helping us through the progress, they will be open and they'll be accepting. So once that positivity comes in, the openness comes in, they start liking you, as a person and the method that you're teaching. And I would say overall, loving the child. Having that entire love for the progress that the child is going to go through, the methods that you're going to teach the child. So that is more important. And once that is the base of the entire methodology, everything goes smooth. Once that rapport is built up, then all the therapies, everything that you've given just hits the nail.
And in terms of rapport building, exactly what do you do?
So we play a lot of games and activities. We try to talk to the child. Now it depends on age to age. Like if a younger child is there, then there are games that are going to be there. There is art therapy. There is music and movement. There is a lot of things that are there. Different things that we try to do. And if the elder child is there, then there's a lot of talking which happens. Self-disclosure also happens a lot of the time when we were in their school and their age. So we used to start with that kind of scenarios and some incidents which they find it like, okay, the person is like us itself.
They're able to connect to
able to connect, and once they are able to connect, they find that okay, it is okay to open over here. It is okay to say something over here, whether you like or you don't like. It's sometimes okay to even talk about teachers that I don't like. So these kind of things, then that openness comes in.
And from any of the client or kids who come to you, do you have any example of why they came to you, how they came to you, then what did you do in terms of rapport building, and then going through the therapy and the play that you do, and what was the difference that you saw in the child?
So when you ask a question, I remember one of the case that was there. A child came to me, preschool age, 1.5 or 2 years of age, and none of the preschools were ready to take in the child. And just because the child used to behave like how typically a dog would behave, where the child would throw things on the floor, eat from the floor, child would run around, go in somersaulting and all of that. So the mother was very scared about it, like, and could not even understand the language of the child at that time. So mother could not understand, and this case had come to me. So I took the child for the sessions and everything, and I understood the entire scenario, that there were some family issues which was going on, because of which the child was left with pets at home most of the time. So the child grasped all the things, all the activities what the pets would do by looking at it, by seeing and observing, because that was the language which was around the child. So now when we talk about early stimulations which are being given to the child, so how he grasped everything that the pet would do. So that's how we got to understand. And then later on, we started teaching him and doing all the training in a big classroom, where the child was left free to do whatever they wanted. And at the same time, we were teaching the child also. So sometimes it is not about a remedial educator sitting at one table solving some sheets or doing something or doing some activity. It's like sometimes even running around and showing the things. So it depends on case to case how it is, and stimulation, early stimulation, what kind of stimulation that you're giving as a parent, as a caretaker of the child is very important. And the entire progress was such a thing that then I asked the parent to repeat the play school so that we can get 2 years for entire training the child, doing things and all of that. And the child was able to speak, write, do everything normally what the developmental age required.
That's interesting. But in terms of your intervention, what all did you do with that child?
I left the child given a freedom, and then given all the environment, that is the stimulation of what a normal schooling would do with the child, not having other children around.
Okay, so he was in a classroom?
Yeah, only one child, and one as a special educator I was there.
Okay.
With the child. So the child does not feel that I am different from the others, but at the same time is given freedom, because the child has come from a particular environment. You can't just disconnect that environment from the child. So it's like desensitizing what the child has learned and then sensitizing what he needs to learn. So that was the entire shift that I had to do for the child.
That's actually a very, very interesting case. And are there any risks or challenges if there are delayed interventions?
Yes, there are. It's not about risk, but it is about solving the case would be difficult. So sometimes that entire, it will take a long time to solve, and if the severity increases, probably we'll have to deal with the limitations.
And what does that mean when you say deal with the limitations?
Meaning if the child is not able to spell out, the spellings are not weak, then you'll have to deal with those limitations. As the standards are going, the gap is going to increase. We can solve it. Spellings is not something that we cannot solve, but as the standards are increasing, the expectation for the child is increasing, but the child is still at a lower standard of learning. So that's why the gap is increasing.
Got it. And in terms of myths and misconceptions that are around remedial education, so what are the typical myths that are there?
About remedial education, I would say that if you are going to a therapist, first and foremost, the therapist is not somebody like a god. Okay, they know how they will be able to solve the case, but the reciprocal response of the child and the parent is important. So if that reciprocal response is given, definitely the therapies do work very well. Then another thing would be there that they are just playing with the child. Parents feel that they're just playing with the child, but along with those activities, the kind of skills that have been developed, that's an underlying skills which have been developed, which are not been seen, and most of the skills are abstract skills. So you can't concretely show this is what the skill that I'm developing, because unless and until after the skill development, the activity takes place. So that's how the progress is. So the parent would feel कि अरे कुछ करा तो नहीं रहे हैं, कुछ असाइनमेंट शीट तो नहीं भेजा, बुक में कुछ लिखाया तो नहीं, तो कर क्या रहे हैं? That is the thing, because when we are taking remedial education or the remedial therapies or sessions, we parent and the child and the teacher is there, the specialist is there. The parent is not sitting alone, because we don't want any kind of environmental biases to be there while we are developing those skills. So as a result, when they are seeing, so that's why important, after every session I do talk to parents also, so they get that satisfaction of what has been done in the session. So talking to parents, making them aware about it, updating them is most important.
And if the parents, they cannot afford therapy or the treatment, what would be your simple tips and tricks to such parents?
If you can't afford a long-term therapy, for example, then it's better to learn few techniques by a specialist itself. Because trying anything and everything will not work with the child. They are specialized to understand the child and understand the kind of skills that need to be developed and understand the kind of activity which is going to be suitable for the child. So that is important. So after few time gaps, we need to consult the therapist so that the methods would change. Like it is like completely, having a dietitian, okay, you know what you need to eat. Carbohydrates, proteins, fats, the proportion, and everybody who is you're reading, about what it is. But when to eat what, they will tell you. So correct. Similarly, when to do which activity, a specialist will only tell. So it's important to timely renew if you can't go for a consistent therapy.
And basically they need to keep observing whether their kids have already started performing on that particular activity.
But especially a remedial educator, what happens, it's not like a list कि ये करवाओ तो हो जाएगा, because वो activity कराते वक्त भी the kind of method that a specialist would put in, a parent can't put in that method. That is a little tricky part of it. So it is better that going to a therapist is better, going to a remedial educator is better.
So which is the most difficult case that you have handled till date, and why was it that difficult?
This case has actually led me to remedial education, the field of remedial education. I was doing my master's program and I was doing an internship under a counselor, and at that time I was given a class to observe. 20-minute or 30-minute time to observe 40 children. So, and I had to pick out which child has difficulty and what kind of difficulty that they have. So, being an intern, I was given this assignment and I picked up 2 children and identifying what difficulty that they have. Of which one of the child, when I went closely to observe that child, the child just looked at me and said, "My hand does not move." A 4-year-old child saying that. And that stuck with me. Today also I can hear that voice and I get goosebumps. And I feel that, I need to do something. And I took that as an entire case for about 6 months time period, where I did everything possible and I got all the permission from the principal also to take the child out of the class to an art room, to a math room, or to a dramatic room, even playground, everywhere else. and I try to train the child not only with writing issues, but even socializing also. The child was at risk. I took counseling of parents also, but parents were really reluctant कि बच्चा छोटा है हो जाएगा करके. But still, because of that one statement that a child had told me, I took it on myself. I need to solve this case. I tried every possible scenario, and this was in 2006-7 that I had done for about 6 months, and then a movie came called as Tare Zameen Par in 2007 December, and when I saw that movie, I felt it was a complete replica of what I had solved. I could see the entire solving of the case on screen, literally on screen, and every remedial methodology which was given in that movie, I had already done with the child. So there was nothing like which was skipped. And the last scene, the last day of meeting the child, so we usually desensitize our counseling sessions so that the child now has to be independent within the classroom, and I would not be seeing the child. So definitely I was preparing the child for it, and the last day came in. The child went in the assembly room. He was going to home and everything, and he was just going to take a right, go downstairs, so I would not be seeing the child. Child turned back and he ran to me and he hugged me, and he gave me the smile. That was the first time in 6 months I saw a smile on that child. So the child did understand what happened. How did I help the child to get through the entire thing? How did the child was able to write then? And a 4-year-old child could understand entire process and acknowledge that on the last day. And when I saw that entire scene in Tare Zameen Par, the last scene where he runs and hugs Aamir Khan, I was like, this I have already done. I have experienced it. So every child do understand. As humans, even if the age is small, they do understand there is some kind of difficulty which is there. There's something that I cannot do, and we need to reach out to them, and we need to help them and assist them to navigate through smoothly. That is important. So it was a complete kind of it stuck with me. This case actually stuck with me, and the counselor was happy. They made me make copies of that case, keeping in school with the counselor, with myself, like literally 3 copies of it. And I felt this was a graph, and this graph which I saw, that is the passion that till date I am continuing that graph, and I want to see progress in every child, that entire from start to the end. And then I did keep a track for 2 to 3 years along with school teachers and my friends who were teachers in that school, and they said that now the child can do independently everything.
Wow.
So that was something that I have cherished, and this has actually led me to remedial education, and I found my ability in remedial education.
No, that's like really something that, with a child who's actually communicated to you in a way that he's not able to move his hand, and you really working with the child for 6 months and coming to a stage wherein he's independent, it's quite something. Yeah.
Yes.
And the last question that I have is, a lot of parents during this entire process, they do get discouraged, right? That nothing is working out, slow hai, hoga bhi ke nahi hoga. So what would be your suggestion to the parents?
Instead of giving any suggestion, I would like to read something to them, and this will resonate better in understanding what they are supposed to do. Ships that wait for perfect winds never sail. Farmers who wait for perfect weather never plant. Writers who wait for perfect words never write. Athletes who wait for perfect condition never train. Entrepreneurs who wait for perfect plan never do business. Perfection is the enemy of progress. Ironically, waiting for the perfect moment only guarantees you will miss every moment. Start messy, start scared, start tired, start broke. Most of all, start now. Your future self will thank you if you start now. And that's important, to start the minute you feel that you require any help of any specialist or a therapist. Thank you.
Yeah, that hits very, very hard. Thank you so much, Urvashi, for being on the show. I have learned a lot about remedial education. There's a lot of nitty-gritties that are there in the entire process. People who are involved, myths that are there. So we have covered it all, and I actually have learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience have learned a lot as well. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you.
Most welcome.